Welcome back, everybody, to the Innovative Agency. Very happy to be with you again today. It's Sharon Torek here, and we've spent a fair amount of time, on the show talking about um, strategic alliances between agencies, including white labeling. And we've also spent a fair amount of time talking about artificial intelligence and what it's going to mean to you as you run your agencies. But today's discussion is going to be, I think, a little bit different and certainly eye-opening and more global in its perspective. And so, Damian Papworth, thank you for joining me today on the show. I'm really excited to delve into this with you.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for having me. Happy to
I'm
be
ex-
here.
I'm excited too. So you are the founder and CEO of Globitas, and I'll let you explain kind of what your company does and what its model is.
Yeah, great. So we are a pure white label agency. So all we do is support agencies, and we fulfill on agency strategies. So our agencies create marketing strategy, and whether that's SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, social media, copywriting, email marketing, they'll send that strategy to us, and we'll do the fulfillment of that, which is the bums on the seats, putting the work together and sending it back.
Yeah.
And we do that completely white label, so it all comes back with our agency's logos on it, and then they deliver to their client. Obviously, there's some checking and ticking of boxes to make sure that everyone's brands are protected and the work is complete at a suitable level.
Mhm.
Then they deliver to their clients. So we sell in about 10 countries at the moment, with staff across 6 countries. So we're definitely global. See very interesting global trends, and we're sort of supporting around 2,000 marketing campaigns at the moment. So we do see some of these macro trends that happen across industries.
Well, there's a couple reasons why I'm excited about the conversation today. First of all, with a global perspective, I would love to get into what you're seeing in terms of success versus less than success when it comes to operating a white label partnership between an agency and the white label firm. And how you're seeing that differ, or maybe you're not seeing many differences from country to country. And I also think it'll be fascinating to sort of delve into what you're seeing out there generally and AI and what it means for your industry. Because I know a lot of agency owners are at first, when ChatGPT came out in a more democratic way, everybody was panicking and
Mm,
it was a lot of the robots are coming for our jobs and how is my agency going to compete? That has calmed down a little bit, but now it's time to start thinking, as you put it so well, and I can't wait to get into this with you. Now it's time to start thinking about strategy, not just tactics when it comes
mm.
to AI, right? So let's talk a little bit about success in the white label relationship. You've seen a lot of stuff, I'm sure, served a lot of
Yeah.
agencies, and I'd love to get your perspective on what separates the successful white label relationships from the ones that don't work out as well or are not as effective.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's probably two parts of this. One is what makes the relationships work, and then the other one, I guess, would be what's happening. What are we seeing in the world at the moment?
Mhm,
And I don't think there's too much variation between countries at the moment. I think everyone's sort of experiencing the same thing.
mhm,
But what makes our relationship successful with our clients, our agency clients, I think, is one to realize that using a white label agency and using employees internally are kind of the same thing. All you're doing is resourcing your business to get the fulfillment of your projects done. So if we start with that concept that all we're doing is resourcing, then you're basically running the business as if you would internally, except by using contractors. So
mhm,
what do you need to do to make it successful? One is to understand exactly what you're responsible for as the owner, operator, leader in your business, and also where the separation is, what your resources are responsible for, and then create appropriate processes, checks and balances around that to make sure the work's getting done to a level of quality that you're happy with and within timeframes you're happy with. And with those sort of processes that bind that together, to over time, you've got the opportunity to improve your processes and to make your business operate more effectively over time. So
Mhm.
that understanding of exactly where we fit into your business and um, you know what the actual business structure is around that, then you can just run a business. So what you don't want to do with a white label partnership, just like you don't want to do with an employee, is abdicate your responsibilities.
Mm.
So that's pretty much it. We're just another way to do resourcing. So how would you manage it internally? Make sure you do manage it.
When we were having a bit of a chat before we started recording the episode today, you made a point that was really clarifying for me, and that was that you see your operation and its relationship with all of the agencies that it serves. You're you are fulfillment. I don't want to say just fulfillment because
Yes,
fulfillment is a big deal, but you're not there to be strategic partners with your agencies on strategy for their clients. You're not there to help them design the campaigns. You're there to help them execute whatever vision they've recommended to the client.
exactly.
That is very profound because I feel like a lot of agencies and white label partners maybe aren't as clear about drawing those lines as they could be. And I'm wondering if that is a factor that might affect the success of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two parts of this. I think the first part is we have that clarity because all we do is white label. We actually don't sell direct to client either, um, which gives us a very, like, that means we see us in a very, very clear, with a very clear role. We're here to support agencies. I think there's conflict of interest issues with selling direct also because all of a sudden we're competing with our clients. So we've
Mhm.
always tried to avoid that. Um, but knowing that we're here to support agencies, one of the questions we ask ourselves is what do our agencies want? And for us, it's not, we don't want to come in and do a brilliant strategy one moment just because we were brilliant in that moment and create an expectation of this brilliance when we can't do that every single time.
Mm,
Because our agencies are reselling our services pretty much. As
mhm,
part of that fulfillment, our agencies are reselling services. So what do we want to be? We want to be consistently good. So we need to produce the same output at the same quality within the same timeframes every time, so that our agencies then know exactly what they're getting, know what they're selling, have the confidence that it'll be done to this level, and then it's up to them to create the whiz bang effects around it and the brilliance that they want to associate their brand with.
mhm.
So we do the fundamentals exceptionally well at a consistent level, and that leaves our agencies room to define themselves in the market, with the strategy and the customer service and all those elements that they can add to the equation.
Got it. So, because you are fulfillment focused, do you typically find that, and maybe you don't have a point of view on this, maybe it depends on the agencies you're working with, but do you have a point of view on whether it is more likely to be successful integrating your workflow policies, systems, procedures to fulfill the agency's sort of vision, or do the agencies prefer you to sort of defer to their workflow processes, procedures? Right? Because I'm guessing there's probably a tension between the way the agencies who engage you as a white label partner do their
Yeah.
work and deliver their work and the way your systems are set up to work. So, how do you match those together or integrate them? Or I guess if you can't, which one wins?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because so at the entry point with our new relationships, we have processes that we expect to be followed. And the agencies that work best in that scenario are the ones that then can modify their processes to fit in with us. I mean, usually that works pretty well because entry level agencies typically aren't strong on having processes in place.
Mhm.
So, we'll get feedback, we'll ask for feedback um, on a policy or a project from an agency, and they haven't thought about that yet, or they know they have to get it, but we'd try to encourage them to put a process around getting that information from the client. So the agencies that work well will create their own process around our communication. So then that's just the next step. It's not a problem. As our partnerships with agencies develop and they get a bit more volume through, then we're very open to creating bespoke policies together. Um, and it works kind of, I mean, you're right, there is sometimes friction there, but it kind of works pretty well because as the agencies themselves get a bit more sophisticated in their businesses with volume, they start to get a bit clearer on what they need to procedure wise. But we're quite happy to, because we don't actually want the industry to be generic. We do want agencies to be different and to um, have different voices and create that nuance in the industry. So other businesses can have difference when they've got three quotes. They can see there is actually difference there. So we definitely encourage our agencies to do different things.
Well, yeah, and you you have to have diversity because your the brands that the agencies serve their audiences have diverse audiences as well. So you've got to have
Exactly.
different approaches, different creative ideas. Otherwise, what would be the point of the industry, right?
Exactly.
There to be
Yeah, and
creative.
sometimes we get agencies that ask us to do everything. Like they want us to do their sales proposals and their lead generation and their audits and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, well, is there anything that you want to say about your business at all? Because, and we've really avoided that because we don't want a local dentist to get three quotes and they're all exactly same quote because they all came from us. So we
Yeah.
try to have very clear separation of duties, and we don't do your client services, we don't do your sales, we execute on your strategy, that type of thing, which I think makes the industry work really well.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not there to be their event planners, right? Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And if we're doing all that, why wouldn't we just be an agency?
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Well, and I think having a very strong point of view about being only white label, being only in the background, serving only an agency directly, it helps, I would think,
yeah.
your agency partners. It gives them peace of mind in terms of, where the swim lanes are, which,
Mm,
we have found at our firm counseling agencies is super important whenever agencies collaborate,
yeah.
um, keeping swim lanes well defined. So you made strong distinctions between fulfillment versus creative direction or strategy. And we were having a bit of a conversation about AI and what it
Mm,
has meant to start introducing it into the work that you do. And I'm super interested in your perspective on it because you are a fulfillment focused business. And I think the fear that most agencies had was that AI was coming for the
yeah.
fulfillment work, right? So, talk a little bit about your pathway through this over the last 18 months or so. And um, you expressed that you felt like we were talking too much about tactics, not enough about strategy when it comes to integrating AI
Yeah.
into our work. So let's talk a little bit about what you mean there and how you're addressing it.
It's great.
Your firm.
um yes, 100%. I think our journey probably started in March last year. I was actually out in Austin with Digital Marketer, and I was doing a workshop for the agencies there on how to use your numbers in a high level strategy.
Mhm.
A lot of people use their numbers for tactics. A lot of agencies and businesses use their numbers for tactics and say, well, you're missing probably two key steps. And if you've got these two key steps, everything fits into place, and you know how to basically grow your business. And and with a level of surety because it's strategy now, not tactical. And that's when I was first introduced to this new thing, AI, which I'd heard about before, but I hadn't really paid much attention to. And I saw with some level of dismay how good it was already back in March. On that trip, I was lucky enough to, with Digital Marketer, to go out and visit one of the directors at Jasper.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed, and we spent about 2 hours out at Jasper, and one of the things I noticed was that no one was talking about strategy at all. It's funny, I was being a little bit treated like the uncool old man in the room because I was doing the human-based fulfillment, and we're the cool kids on the block now, and there was a definite dynamic there of us versus them, and so well, that's
Mhm.
not how it works. But let's talk about strategy. And I couldn't shift the conversation to strategic matters. Every time I tried to shift it along to strategy, it went back to content. Basically, I want to talk about content creation, and that was all. And to me, that's not how business works. That's like how shiny objects works, and that's how you break a business.
Right.
So without a strategy, all you're doing is chasing shiny objects, and then you'll end up finding yourself doing random acts of technology that don't fit into anything, and that's not a great way to move forward. It's a good way to spend a lot of money. And it's funny because when I got back home, I was telling the team, I got introduced to the guys at Jasper. It's pretty good. Are we doing anything about it? And we weren't at that point. I said, well, let's start thinking about it. And just going on to LinkedIn over the next 2 or 3 months, it was crazy. All I could see was, I think that my biggest engagement post from LinkedIn was, hey, just a one-liner. Here's something that's not AI on LinkedIn today, and I got stacks of engagement for that without any pictures. It was just that. But but one thing I noticed is that all the noise seemed to be coming from the same type of people that 3 months ago were talking about crypto, Bitcoin and crypto. It's like,
And then
the
the multiverse, yeah, before that.
exactly. So it's
Web
all
three.
and there was alarmism and opportunism and all that kind of stuff. But it was people that tend to jump from one hack to the next hack, and they're so noisy. They weren't coming. None of the real information was coming from people that create an asset. Create a business that becomes an actual asset. And I thought that was very clear. Um, and reflecting when I was speaking to my team and reflecting on what was going on, it reminded me of Andy Grove's book, Only the Paranoid Survive. And he talks about industry shifting. And when they're shifting, you'll never have enough information to make decisions, but you can't not make decisions. You have to actually make decisions because the shift in the industry is big enough that you can't fight against it. You have to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I sat down and thought, well, the first thing I thought about was, I mean, three things. One is, what do we need to protect? The other was, what pieces do we need in play to be open to opportunities? Then the third was, what's left and what do we do with that? So, um, and then with those three sort of thoughts, I can give examples of how that worked, but we also then had a look at a bunch of other things. So, yes, so first, like as part of Globita, we've organically grown a virtual assistant business. Virtual assistants work quite well, helping agencies get administration done and that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
we organically had that in the business. We shifted that out of Globita. We shifted that out of the digital agency business. Um, and now it's a self-standing business. And we thought, well, it's because Globatel's all about digital marketing. That's about administration. AI is going to deal with those differently. So let's just keep that separate. So that's a strategic move. It's nothing about content. Um,
Right.
so, but yeah, so I think even before that, one of the things we spent a bit of time coming to grips with is who are we? We spent a bit of time thinking, who are we? And what we decided was we're experts in fulfillment. So we really thought a lot about that. We're experts in fulfillment, and what does that mean in an AI mature world?
Right.
And so that was question two, and that was quite comforting because um, if you're an expert in fulfillment, you can probably we decided we can probably move. We don't have to stay doing SEO and Facebook ads. We can actually shift as the industry shifts because you know AI will probably still need fulfillment. So what does that actually look like?
Mhm.
Um, so then that having understood or come to that realization that that's the direction we want to take, strategic direction, nothing to do with how do I do a blog post faster. Still looking around and seeing on LinkedIn, everyone's still talking about, hey, look at this prompt that I put together. It's amazing. You have to become an expert on writing prompts. It's like, well, we want to be experts in fulfillment, so maybe we don't have to become an expert in writing prompts. So
I
then we
mean,
thought,
maybe you need some team members who are experts on it. Maybe you don't need a whole department or a whole practice area
yeah.
focused on it.
Or some of the other stuff we're seeing, your business model is broken. It'll never survive. Google's going to die with this. That whole alarmism. It's like, yeah, let's just put our business away and start something completely new. That's the kind of advice we're getting. So, but yeah, so we it was
So
very
true.
alarmist back then. Um, and I've seen people literally stop doing their business to do something completely different. That's crazy. So, and give a bit of perspective. We have time. We definitely have time. So, one of the trends that we're seeing, we do copywriting is one of the services we do. And we do about 600, 700 pieces of copy a month. Um, so around about May last year, we we launched some AI assisted copywriting pieces. I'm very clear about where we're using AI, so that our agencies, if they needed to just disclose with their clients, they could. Um,
Right.
and that came with a 30% discount on the normal copywriting pieces. So we passed on the benefits of AI to our agencies so they can decide what to do with that. By the time we got to December last year, we still had about 600, 700 pieces of copy that we're doing. And of those, only 25 were AI assisted. So we have time. Things weren't moving so fast that no one was doing copy anymore. We didn't have degradation of our numbers in copywriting, and we didn't have a massive immediate fast pickup of the AI assisted work. So yeah, so with the having ticked off, what do we need to protect? Let's shift the VA business out of Globitel, so that's separate because we saw that as not as at risk. That's probably will be something that will be enhanced by AI tools. Um, one of the questions we mulled over is, will the agency industry exist in 5 to 10 years? And this is one of the things that Andy Grove's book said, you just don't know. You literally don't know, but we have to make decisions today. So what we thought we'd do is um, the best analogy I can give, and I talked about this, I was quite proud of coming up with this analogy. Our industry back, so we're talking sort of between May and September last year, it feels like we've been given a puzzle, right?
Right.
And someone's turned all the pieces upside down, taken all the corners and the edges away, and taken the box away, and you're left with that, and that's what you've got to deal with. And you've got to try to put this puzzle together, but you can't, you've got no reference point to start and no picture, and you don't even know what the picture is going to look like. You've just got all these puzzle pieces upside down.
Which
Um,
sounds to me like you've got, well, go ahead, finish your analogy, and then I'll share what I got from what you just said. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I just said to the team, what we want to do is have as many of these pieces of the puzzle in play. So as they start flipping upside down, we've at least got them in play.
Right. Well, and I think what you just laid out is an example of human ingenuity still being in control at the end of the day, and generative AI being used as a tool, because what you're talking about is some human had to figure out how to match those pieces to that puzzle, you know, in some way, given the limitations put on them, right? The
Yeah,
constraints. Um, David Baker and Blair Enns always talk about figure out how to run your agency profitably, by, adding these fictional constraints onto it. What if you didn't have this? What if you couldn't
Mm,
sell that? What if you didn't Same thing with generative AI, for example. What if you have to charge X instead of Y for the copy that
yeah.
you're writing? Or what if you have a two-tier, payment structure where you didn't before? It's I think thinking of it additively versus
Mm,
thinking of it as sort of coming for your lunch, I think is the only productive way to navigate through a change like this in
yeah,
the
absolutely. And that's a really good point because I was never concerned about the generative side of AI. I was more talking to my team about, Google's going to change.
yeah.
You know, before we're even talking about SG, we still don't know how SG is really going to work. And we're also seeing the democratization of search. Like we're seeing apps now that people are using to search that
Mhm,
shows a little bit of Google, but a bunch of other stuff too. So,
mhm,
what will search actually look like? But, you underlay that with this concept that people, like this morning, it's only 6:30 now. I'm in a hotel because I'm traveling at the moment, and I wake up at 5. I was like, you know what? I want a coffee. So I had to find a cafe, and I managed to find one using, Google Maps that was open at 4:30 here in Brisbane. It's crazy, but anyway, so
wow.
I got the coffee, but
Yeah,
it was really good
Australians
experience.
like their caffeine.
That's it. But it's interesting because people will still look for the stuff that they need, and businesses will still need to put their wares in front of people looking. So search will always be there, but what will it look like in an AI mature world? And we don't have the answer.
Right.
So yeah, so the approach we took with that idea of having all the pieces in play is with like, well, what are the pieces? So one of the pieces was, for example, we want we want to be proactive in our business. So we put a little think tank together for the business, and we had people in different departments part of that, and they get together once a fortnight to discuss. So some of the, one of the things is with that think tank is everyone uses um, try stuff out for half an hour a day, and they bring their results back. So we have people actively using and reporting on what's working, what's not working.
Right.
So we've got a it's sort of like the basis of a R&D department in AI for our business, but as users. So we actually can start to see how people can use AI. And there's some other mandates that team's got. We wanted, with this idea of fulfillment, we wanted to have an opportunity in the future to do AI consulting, implementation consulting. So we in advance went and found someone who is in Portugal. And Hugo's he's up to his eyeballs in AI, and he's on a lot of the forums. And so we employed him full time without really a mandated position description, with the idea that he'll help us put together what that um, consultancy function is.
Mhm.
One of the benefits of doing that, that's an expensive move. I recognize that not everyone can do that, but one of the outcomes of that is he's helped to modernize our business through what he already knows with AI. So he's actually saved us quite a lot of money. Certainly, he paid for his wage, which is really cool.
That's
We
great.
wanted to, yeah, we wanted to have a voice in the industry. We wanted to help direct the conversation, knowing that we have the opportunity to see what's going on industry wide through our breadth of agencies and marketing campaigns. So I did a lot of search, and I'm pretty sure we're the first AI group on LinkedIn for digital agencies specifically. So it's called the AI Powered Digital Agency. And we just want to gather everyone in a place where specifically for our industry and only for our industry, we have somewhere to talk about AI. Um, and very, very strict, only agency owners get into that. Of course, we get all those people who want to sell their AI widgets into it. They keep pushing, and the AI business coaches, they keep pushing, but we
Yeah.
strictly only let agencies in because we wanted to have a bit of a pure conversation there. But that was another strategic movement we made. We want to be part of the voice and create a mini community there. We looked at, in the AI industry, which partnerships do we want to foster? So we started looking at um, AI businesses, AI companies that are producing solutions, and who do we want to partner with there? because I think one of the risks is you bring an AI tool in. Or if I think about what industry is going to lose the most money with AI over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be the AI industry. They're going to keep
Interesting. Tell me more.
surpass.
What do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
well, it's moving so fast that all the investment that was made into AI solutions 12 months ago has probably been superseded by now.
So, as we're sitting here today, it is July in the US, it's July 9th, 2024. And Paul Racer, who founded the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute here in the US, usually has a weekly podcast with one of his colleagues, and they post a digest of it on LinkedIn. And one of the conversations, because I saw the digest actually right before our interview, that they talked about was the amount of money being made in AI consulting. And actually, the AI consultancies that have popped up are getting killed by the regular consulting firms, the KPMGs, all the other bigs who are doing business consulting across the board in lots of different industries have added the AI consulting to their practice areas. And um, it kind of affirms what you just said, which is that think integratively and think
Mm,
strategically about this, because this is just being interwoven within our businesses in general. It's not just some new tool or new media trend that we're, kind of waiting out. And so it's fascinating to me that you said that, because he kind of said something very similar. He didn't say that they were losing the most money, but he said they were getting killed by like the
yeah.
McKinseys of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, but I see like so yeah, one of the things with that is we saw that it could be damaging to our agencies if we brought solutions on board. Going back to one of the things I originally said, that our job's to be consistent. Um,
Hmm.
if we keep bringing these solutions on board, which then superseded by the next thing, or the AI, that AI development house went broke because they got superseded by ChatGPT 6 or whatever. We wanted to try to create a consistency there around partnerships. We also wanted to have a finger on the pulse in the development industry to have an idea of what's going on agnostic industry wise.
Right.
So not just marketing industry. So I've got an employee in Croatia, and we put her into the Croatian artificial intelligence industry body. So she's got a membership seat there. And Croatia, why Croatia? It's like in the white label world, both Croatia and Ukraine have been very strong technical locations for outsourcing.
Mhm.
Obviously, Croatia's a bit more stable on a sovereign level than Ukraine is, so we've got an employee there. But she's now, one of the partnerships is in the Croat AI industry body, and that's something we did back in May last year. And only now some of the relationships from that presence are starting to make sense. We
Mhm.
did that based on we want to have a finger on the pulse. That's one of our unturned puzzle pieces. We have no idea why we're going to be here, but that's starting to make sense now. So, and then outside that, only then did we have a look at internal efficiencies, and only then did we look at how can we improve our products for our agencies. So we had a very, very sort of broad approach to dealing with strategy for AI, um, rather than just, I'm going to save an hour here doing this blog post kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, so, just taking a step back for a second, this has been fascinating. What I'm kind of digesting, um, on behalf of agency owners who might be listening to this, is that first of all, think beyond the four walls of your agency or even the agency industry, and think about what AI is meaning for the business climate for your clients. Because I heard a lot of what you said around, getting plugged into the development community, getting plugged into,
Mm.
agencies who have a particular industry vertical that they serve, getting involved in how AI is being implemented and talked about in those communities. Um, and then I heard, you know, be straightforward as an agency about if you're going to use AI on the generative side, factor it into either your productivity, promises are factored into your pricing, whatever makes more sense for you as a business, and just be open and transparent about it, and either give the client more value because you're using these tools and they're saving you time, or price accordingly for the tools that you've generated, that for the work that you've generated out of AI tools in part. Um, so I think those are some big, broad strategic themes that um, we don't usually take a breath to think enough about in agency
Yeah,
land, because we're too busy trying to figure out how to save an hour here or there, like you said,
yeah.
out of our day, or get more productivity out of our team members to keep our margins good.
Yeah, so I think the first point you made out of those two is really critical. It's think about it from your client's perspective, because when you think about it, the reason why we exist as digital agencies is because, we know our plumber client, he's still up at 10:30 sending invoices which are 4 weeks late because he's too busy.
Yeah,
So he doesn't have time to do his SEO or his Google ads. That's
right.
why he's employed you, so you can drive leads, so he can do the work and still have too much work, so he can't get his invoices done, so he's up at 10:30 at night. Um,
Yeah,
he doesn't want to figure out how to do Google ads himself.
right.
These aren't the people that are going to go and figure out ChatGPT. They're
Mhm.
in exactly the same position. They want leads, they want clients. Um, they they don't care too much about the technology. They just want to do their plumbing work and get paid.
Yeah, and they
So
want professional expertise. They don't want to hire a cousin's kid who's,
exactly,
in university to do it on the side, for the
that's right.
summer. Yeah,
And that's because it's their business, their livelihood. Getting their, you know, university cousin to do it is a risk for their business. They just want the leads and they just want a successful business. So and that's why I think, on one hand, I do think what's the future for the digital agency industry? It's not going to be the same. We don't have the answer of what it's going to be, but
mhm,
that need for the businesses we serve to be served will not go away.
right.
So how do we fit in with that? Who are we? What does that look like in an AI mature world?
And that is a very strategic question.
It is.
It is.
Uh,
I can't think of a better place to drop the mic there. This has been a fascinating conversation and really thought provoking about, how we should spend our time thinking about what AI means for the agency world, and for our clients' worlds in general, and in a deliberative, not panicky
Yeah,
kind of way, and just just accept the fact that we maybe don't know how things are going to look a few years from now, but think about how you're relevant today and how you can continue to stay relevant to the clients who need you a few years from now, and regardless of what the tools are, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
A- And not knowing what the future holds, well, that's the life of the entrepreneur, isn't it?
it
So,
is. That's
you're,
amen to that. Amen to that. You get in love with the discomfort of it all, or you get comfortable in the discomfort, I think is what they say. And I think
exactly.
it's very true.
So
Well,
go have
Damian,
fun.
yeah. This
Yeah.
has been fascinating, and I'm grateful for you for spending the time, getting up so early your time to have the conversation. And I would love for you to tell us where agencies can learn more about Globita and its services, if they want to check out the work that you do as white label partner.
Yeah, great. I think we'll send you a link that you can put in the show notes. But our website's globatelmarketing.com. It's Globitel Marketing on all the social medias. One thing we do offer new agencies, we recognize using a resource partner like White Label is sometimes a change in business model, which is a bit of a risk. So we do offer new agencies that come through $1,000 credit to try us out and see if it's a good fit. So I'll make that offer to your listeners also. But yeah, so just Globitel Marketing. Globitel is global and digital squashed together in one word. So
Yeah,
that's how you spell it.
very clever. A trademark lawyer's dream.
Exactly. Well, thanks for
Davey,
having me, Sharon. It's been
thank
great.
you. Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure the agency owners listening got a lot of great food for thought as well as they get on with it, and integrating AI into their businesses. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time, and thanks to all of you for spending time with us again today. And we will see you on the next episode of Innovative Agency. And until then, everybody stay well. Okay.
So yeah.